Now, in light of our broader discussion tonight of the Quebec mosque shooting, the Trump travel ban and Islamophobia, we want to explore whether changes in our political landscape are actually helping to fuel violence, including hate crimes. And we now welcome Jeffrey Reitz, hello, who is the professor of sociology, director of ethnic immigration and pluralism studies at U of T. That's quite the lengthy title. Now, you were actually on University Avenue, part of that protest today. Why did you take part in that?
Well, I'm a U.S. citizen, and I can tell you that I got an email from the consulate notifying me of that event. And I thought that was an interesting thing that they did, because normally they don't notify people of the events like that. I wondered whether the consul wanted to encourage people to come down there. But, you know, I'm not a fan of Mr. Trump's bans on travel. I think they're completely baseless. He says initially announced a ban on Muslims and then altered it and now says it's not a ban on Muslims, but it's hard to see what it's a ban on, because the countries whose citizens are being restricted haven't engaged in any terrorist attacks on the United States.
So when a politician adds this into the language and into the discourse and basically says it's okay, is that condoning other people from acting out as well?
Well, I think that is the way it's interpreted. I mean, he's conveying very clearly the idea that Muslims represent a threat, and Muslims have to be barred. At least certain large categories of Muslims should be barred from the United States to preserve the safety of the population. So the Muslims are a threat. If they're a threat, the ones who are already here are a problem as well, and maybe it would be a good idea to intimidate them, attack them, or in this case in Quebec, to actually kill them as a hero and a patriot. That's the message.
You actually have some views on cultural minorities and how they're treated in Quebec. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, you know, a lot of people have looked at the debates that have been going on in Quebec, similar to the ones in France, and focusing on religious minorities in particular, and viewing them as a threat, as representing a problem for Quebec society. And so that has raised the issue of Islamophobia in Quebec. But I think it's important to remember that generally in Quebec, there's an openness to immigration. Quebecers are as likely to support immigration as Canadians from other parts of the country. They're as committed to equality. But they do have a distinctive position because of the fact that Quebecers and French Canadians see themselves as, to some extent, a minority whose culture is threatened in Canada. And for that reason, and I think it makes sense, that they're concerned that newly arriving groups don't diminish the position of French language and culture. Right. So they have adopted measures to take control of immigration and also to take control of the education of immigrant children.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. One quick question, though, and it's kind of a yes or no answer because we're running out of time. Is that helping the immigrant experience or hurting it? You know,
it seems that if you ask the immigrants about their satisfaction with their situation or problems they may be having, it seems that actually things are a little bit better in Quebec than they are in the rest of Canada. It's surprised a lot of people in view of those debates. The debates don't really tell us too much about what's actually happening in the community.
Professor Reitz, thank you very much for joining us this evening.